Welcome to How to Forgive and Forget. Mapping. Summary. If quirkless discrimination was a little bit worse, and if Izuku wasn't as forgiving, well, featuring All Might's absolutely horrible teaching trademark, a slightly more self-aware Izuku, the League of Villains, very little forgiveness, and a lot of traumatized kids. Chapter 1. Asking to be kidnapped is not a good idea. Notes. See the end of the chapter for notes. Can I come with you? The fingers around his throat loosen slightly. The figure beside him turns to face him, suspicion and confusion and curiosity warring on his scarred face. What? His scratchy voice is flat, his fingernails ghosting over his scarred neck. Izuku pauses, trying to work up the courage to talk again. The feeling of being suffocated had become noticeable after the battle trial and had only grown as the semester progressed. Questions weighed heavily down on him, knowledge he didn't want filling up his mind. The pity in Uraraka's eyes when the quirkless were mentioned. Ida's speech on protecting the defenseless, the rest of the class's dismissal of their existence. And Bakugo had made his opinion on quirkless people crystal clear the past 10 years. He couldn't quite work up the courage to ask his teachers. They are pro-heroes, sure, but they are also teachers. Teachers don't care. He could practically feel Aizawa's eyes on him, the nickname Problem Child stinging every time it passed from his lips. If he didn't have one for all, would he even be here? The answer is no. It was clear when he faced All Might's overwhelming force in the final exams. His stomach still twinges in pain from where he was impaled. It's a new kind of pain, one that he takes in stride. He has to, just like the ache of his jaw. Bakugo never liked teamwork. Relying on others makes you weak. Relying on a weak Deku? Out of the question. Except he's not weak. One for all rushes through his veins, and All Might's legacy rests on his shoulders, turning his hunched walk into a desperate crawl to some unknown finish line. He may have All Might's legacy, but his past experiences have not been erased by his new overwhelming power. He wants to save people. All Might's power will let him save far more than he could on his own. But is it worth it? Over a century of accumulating power shoved into the body of a quirkless teenager who refuses to forget, his hands ache. I need to breathe. Home isn't an option. Mom doesn't need any extra burdens. Between his injuries and the villain attacks, she's already been considering transferring him to another school. Any more potential fatal situations and UA will be right out, and then All Might will be disappointed. UA is his alma mater after all. Shigaraki watches him, eyes glittering the same shade of red as Bakugo's. The blonde could never achieve this level of jaded anger, though. It doesn't need to be long. Just take me with you, please. The words feel heavy as they leave his mouth, and the rest of the noise of the mall seems to fade into the background as Shigaraki studies him. After a moment, he stands, bringing Izuku up with him. Come on, brat. You fought the hero killer, right? Tell me about him. There's a cafe over there. Shigaraki jerks his head towards a relatively calm building. Izuku's shoulders slump. Shigaraki was thinking about it then. Hands still around Izuku's neck, they enter the cafe. A short wait later, they're in front of a cashier who stares at the hand on Izuku's neck nervously. Oh, cherry soda. Shigaraki looks at him. Oh, I need to order. Black tea with milk, please, he says, watching the cashier fidget with the tablet nervously as they watch them. Sir, are you okay? Shigaraki stiffens, looking over at Izuku, who plasters a sheepish smile on his face. I'm fine, it's just part of his quirk. How much? Both parties relax and the tab is paid for by Izuku. They retreat to a table in the corner quickly, avoiding questioning gazes by sitting side by side. Shigaraki seems unused to the contact, but his expression remains neutral as he watches Izuku pull a pen out of nowhere and starts doodling on a napkin. You wanted to know about the hero killer? Izuku asks, relieved to be hidden from the questioning looks. The villain nods, looking annoyed. I've been getting a lot of NPCs coming in and thinking we were working together, and Kurogiri won't let me dust them. Apparently they're good party members for the future. But you weren't working with Stain. I thought so. A wilted flower comes to life on the napkin. Oh, really? Yeah. He has a single-minded goal, and your goal is pretty abstract. Plus, he's an All Might fanboy at his core. No way you'd get along, Izuku stated matter-of-factly. Shigaraki nods along, surprised by how perceptive the hero brat is. He's right. In the end, Stain was a stubborn NPC who refused to listen to Shigaraki. He has no use for uncooperative party members. You're pretty smart. Do you know why they were more focused on Stain than me then? Shigaraki asks, watching the student's scarred hand lightly sketch out a burning candle. Izuku thinks over it for a moment, pausing his drawing to tap the pen against the table. Hey, well, here are your drinks. Enjoy, the server chirps, then walks off brusquely, leaving the two occupants of the table to awkwardly reach for their drinks at the same time. I think you might not have made your goals clear enough at the USJ. Most of us were too distracted to hear anything other than kill All Might. From what I've seen, you want Hero Society as a whole to fall. Izuku grabs his drink as Shigaraki attempts to open his can with one hand, while not disintegrating it. Absent-mindedly, he takes the can from Shigaraki and opens it, then slides it back across the table. I didn't need your help. No, you didn't. The green-haired boy agrees, sipping his drink. The suffocating feeling is starting to ease up, leaving an odd lightness in his chest. They sit in silence for a long minute, both enjoying their respective drinks. So why exactly are you asking me to kidnap you? Is being a hero not all it's cracked up to be? And there it is. Izuku isn't really sure how to explain the suffocating feeling, just that it presses down on him, a constant presence in his daily life. He can pin the exact day it started, but spilling All Might's secrets is off of the table. The man has been nothing but kind. This is Izuku's burden. Almost a year ago, I made a deal with someone, Izuku finally says, finishing a tree that covers nearly half of his drawing space. A successor. Someone who can become an even better symbol than I ever was. The villain watches him, eyes tracking every movement and the distant look in the student's eyes. I thought it was a good idea at the time. Now I think I've bitten off more than I can chew. The green-haired boy chuckles humorlessly, taking a sip of his tea. Shigaraki watches him, noting the tension in his shoulders. He takes another sip of his soda, fingers twitching at the boy's neck. You're running away from your problems? That doesn't sound very heroic. Izuku stays silent, finishing his drink instead of answering. It's not very heroic, but for once he wants to perform his old routine, melt into the crowd, vanish. Just another civilian in a crowd of many, no legacy, no villains, no quirks. Just him, Izuku. It's been so long since he's been called that by anyone other than his mother. Maybe it isn't, but I'm a human being. We're programmed to be selfish. I want a break. I need a break, he says, trying to get his point across. It's Shigaraki's turn to be quiet, his soda still halfway full. They sit like that for a long time before Shigaraki's phone buzzes. When the villain reads the message, he huffs and drops his hand from Izuku's neck. Surprised, the student watches Shigaraki stand and finishes his soda in one hand while he stuffs his other hand in his pocket. I gotta go. Later, brat. With that, Shigaraki is gone, leaving Izuku alone in the booth. Notes. This is kind of an excuse to vent about All Might and Izuku's relationship, and also an excuse to write a love-friendship fic because there's not enough of those. Honestly, that mentor-student relationship was toxic from the start. All Might told him that he couldn't be a hero without a quirk, then proceeded to leave him on a rooftop. Only after seeing Izuku recklessly charge into danger did he decide, hey, I'm going to give this kid a quirk that might blow his limbs off. Izuku wasn't even in a position to refuse because All Might is his idol, and that just set up a really bad dynamic. And don't get me started on All Might's teaching techniques. I know he's trying his best, but the least he could have done is taken a class or something. A smile is all you need. Notes. See the end of the chapter for notes. Thankfully, it's break. Izuku can stay in his room most of the time without too much inquiry. He still comes out to help around the house, though. It would be inconsiderate not to. Still, he's starting to run out of things to do by the end of the week. Thus, he finds himself staring at the ceiling blankly at 1 a.m. His room is stuffy and Izuku is wide awake, mind buzzing with thoughts. A run. A run will tire him out, maybe help him keep his barely patched together sleep schedule. Throwing on a hoodie and shorts, he sneaks across the living room to the front door and checks to make sure he has his phone and keys. Once that's confirmed, he opens and shuts the door quietly, locking it behind him and pulling the hood up on his face. His feet lead him to Takoba Beach. The water glitters in the bright moonlight, a faint breeze carrying the smell of salt to his nose. There isn't a person in sight. Slowly, he makes his way across the sand. When he's close enough to touch the water, he stops, hands deep in his pockets as he looks out over the water. It's ironic that he'd come here to think, considering this is where it all started. Something about the ocean calls him. It's wild and unrestrained and so free. It isn't subject to judgment or bound by rules or morals or legacy. It just is. The sand shifts behind him as someone else approaches him. Judging from the gait, "Did you reconsider?" Izuku asks, tilting his head to watch Shigaraki approach him. Behind him, familiar purple musk swirls, almost blending into night around it. Shigaraki doesn't respond, just walks up to him, face partially hidden underneath hair and hood. It's silent for a couple minutes, the purple mist still swirling behind them. Finally, the villain speaks up. "Only for a couple hours. My party members are either boring or annoying. Sensei said you could come as long as you don't try anything." Shigaraki shrugs, and Izuku feels a tidal wave of relief rush through him. "You got it, thanks. Don't thank me just yet. My party members are fucking whack jobs." "That says a lot, coming from you," Izuku responds dryly, hands deep in his pockets. Shigaraki doesn't respond, just walks through the portal with Izuku close behind him. The smell of alcohol, blood, and sweat assaults his nose, and it only takes a moment to adjust to the low light. It's a bar. A very well-furnished bar, but a bar nonetheless. 6 people are scattered around the room, looking occupied. Behind the bar, Kurogiri was polishing a glass. Actually, the role of a bartender fits, without the whole villain thing, with his neck brace and suit, and the polite demeanor. Yeah, it fits. "Everyone, this is my guest. Be nice," Shigaraki says, and instantly the attention in the room shifts to them. Some of them are better at hiding it, but one girl leaps to her feet and squeals loudly. "Ooh, who is he? Does his blood taste good?" Blood? It's then he spots a pair of fangs in her grin. "Oh, blood-based quirk then. These are most of my new party members. Some of them are out right now." Izuku nods in understanding, tugging the hood off of his head. Out of the corner of his eye, he notices Kurogiri's form flicker. He's so cute. The blonde girl grins even wider and bounces up to him, the glint of metal the only warning before she attempts to stab him. Years of practice dodging elongated, sharp fingers is how he manages to yank his body violently out of the way, quickly righting himself and watching the girl for any more attacks. She doesn't move threateningly, just pouts and clutches her knife to her chest. It makes him feel bad. People with blood quirks had it harder than most, especially when finding a clean source of blood. "Sorry, you startled me. You have a blood-based quirk, right?" "Do you need my blood?" She looked surprised at his question, her smile disappearing for a moment as she scrutinized him. He gives her a small smile and she slowly steps forwards, a gleam in her eye. "I haven't had any in weeks. My supply ran out right before I met Hanzi." She pouts again, and Izuku raises an eyebrow. "Hanzi? Oh, Shigaraki." He stifles a giggle, his smile getting a little bigger behind his hand. "Well, I'm pretty sure I'm disease-free, so if you want some, you can have it. Just don't take enough to make me pass out, please." And then she lights up, grin even brighter than before. Underscore, 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 underscore. An hour later, Izuku is resting on a couch, trying to beat Shigaraki in a person with a lizard-type quirk called Spinner at Mario Kart. He is terrible, to put it nicely, but the villains are too busy screaming insults at the screen to care. In the corner, Toga and a person in a bright orange jacket converse, the latter wearing a soft smile as they spoke to the girl. A man with burns disappeared shortly after his blood donation, and the man with a gray and black mask leaning out a window and smoking a cigarette. Another person with a yellow trench coat and a geometric mask is talking to Kurogiri, who seems to be keeping an eye on him. Overall, it's relaxing. No one calls him Deku or mentions heroism or the pressure of all might. It's not on purpose. But the man's so oblivious sometimes it's hard to think of him as the symbol of peace, or talks of becoming a new symbol god, knows that isn't what society needs, or desperately sprinting through a never-ending tunnel just to be on equal grounds with his classmates in a fight. He's just Izuku. A couple of rounds later, he watches the controller disintegrate in Shigaraki's hands. The first thought that comes to his mind is why he doesn't have gloves. Then he remembers Shigaraki as a villain, and probably needs his death weapons for hands ready at all times. Still, judging from Kurogiri's long-suffering sigh, this happens semi-regularly. Maybe artist gloves? Those seem like a better option. Filing away the information for a later date, he looks up at the screen. The game pauses because the controller disconnected. Quietly, he hands his remote to Shigaraki, whose frustrated expression morphs into resignation as he takes it from the scarred, crooked hands. Thanks, Brat. With that, they start again, yelling obscenities at the TV. Underscore, 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 underscore. By the time he stumbles back home, it's 8 in the morning, and his phone has been blowing up for the past hour. After a flurry of apologies and a half-truth about going for a morning run and stumbling on a couple friends and losing track of the time, he's released to his room. His mom tells him to text her next time and heads to the kitchen to make breakfast. For the once, he feels light, and a smile is easy to conjure to his lips. It's smaller than his normal forced ones, but it's the most genuine one Inko has seen in a long time. Notes: Asterisk cackles in several pre-written chapters. Asterisk also, Izuku has common sense but zero self-preservation instincts. Chapter 3. Unsolicited but appreciated. Notes. See the end of the chapter for notes. The third time Shigaraki brings him to the bar, Izuku has a clean bill of health and allows Toga to take a bigger amount of blood than last time. It leaves him woozy and slightly off-kilter, so he lays back on a raggedy beanbag, quietly listening to Spinner attempt to beat a level for the 7th time. The burned man is back and approaches him after a very long staring contest. "You're the brat that broke his bones during the sports festival." His voice sounds like he's been smoking since he was a child, but considering his condition, that made sense. Not being immune to your own quirk tended to mess you up in more ways than one. I am. You're a person who can't use their quirk without hurting themselves. Ever considered support items? Turquoise eyes narrow and a sinking feeling of realization settles in his gut. Todoroki has 2 older brothers. One is functionally quirkless and one burned to death in his own flames. Yet another Todoroki family secret I'm technically not supposed to know. Sighing, Izuku slumped into the beanbag, closing his eyes. The memory of gray and turquoise eyes presses down on his chest, and he does his best to breathe through it. If the burned man is anything like his brother, he probably doesn't want to be associated with his family at all. So it's best not to bring it up. You do have a backbone. I'm Dabi. You have a name besides Brat? Dabi knows his name. This is a test. Izuku doesn't want to be called Deku anymore. Every time the name escapes his friend's lips, he has to suppress a flinch. I'm Izuku. Underscore, 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 underscore. The 5th time he visits the bar, he hands Shigaraki a pair of black artist gloves. It's pretty quiet compared to last time, and the only people there are Kurogiri, Magani, and Dabi. The rest are nowhere to be found. None of them react to his presence anymore. Shigaraki stares at the pieces of cloth for a minute before looking back up at Izuku with suspicion. What are those? Izuku blinks. Artist gloves. He slips them onto his hands to demonstrate, and then picks up a controller off of the couch. You don't have to worry about disintegrating stuff with these. He drops the controller and takes off the gloves, handing them to Shigaraki. The villain takes them with wide eyes, the hand on his face barely concealing his surprise. Once he puts them on, he picks up the controller and experimentally puts all of his fingers on it. When it doesn't disintegrate, a gleeful grin spreads on Shigaraki's face. Behind them, Kurogiri lets out a quiet sigh of relief. Dabi scoffs, muttering something like, "About time," and Magne nods in approval. Izuku doesn't notice any of this, just picks up another controller and sits down on the couch, motioning towards the TV. The scarred man grins and flops down, placing the embalmed hand on the arm of the couch. Where are the rest of his hands? Izuku doesn't want to know. Underscore, 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 here. Most of the members are at the bar tonight, but he tries to be as discreet as possible. Keyword is tries. Everyone is nosy, so they instantly perk up, curious as to what's going on. Dabi eyes the gift with amusement. Kid, a tube of burn cream is going to fix all of. He gestures to his body. This. Try it. You'd be surprised, the stuff works miracles. See? Izuku lifts up his shirt and points to a faint starburst-shaped burn on his stomach. It was 3rd or 4th degree, I think, and now it's barely there. It's quirk-enhanced, too. Dabi stares at the scar on his stomach with uncomfortable intensity. Quickly, Izuku drops his shirt and shoves the burn cream into the villain's hands. Anyway, you should try it. I don't know if the staples are a fashion statement or not, but they're asking for an infection. And just like that, the atmosphere lightened. Someone snorted quietly. That earns them a glare from Dabi. Underscore, 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 underscore. Hey, Shigaraki, do you think a staple remover is Dabi's worst enemy? Izuku asks idly while they're playing Mario Kart. Spinner almost drops his controller, and Shigaraki lets out a scratchy cackle that makes Kurogiri jump. Izuku ignores all of this, pulling ahead of them and dropping multiple blue shells. You little shit! Hey! In the corner, Toga collapses into a fit of giggles. Magne and Twice laugh too, nearly knocking over the bottle of nail polish they were using. Noticing Spinner and Shigaraki gaining on him, he smiles and starts talking again. I bet when he goes out, he burns office supplies with extreme prejudice, like a bonfire in the middle of nowhere at midnight. Oh my God, Spinner wheezes, leaning over and allowing Izuku to pull ahead. Shigaraki grins but doesn't lose focus and speeds past Izuku right as he dispatches a banana peel. It hits Spinner instead, who lets out a stream of colorful curses. I can see it. No, I can't. Twice cackles, rolling on the floor. Izuku is taken out by a red shell and slumps back against the couch with a pout. I was so close to winning. Nah, you suck, Shigaraki says, clicking the restart button. Spinner nods along, giving Izuku a pat on the shoulder without a trace of sympathy on his face. Ouch, notes. The chapters on this fic are shorter than usual, but it fits with the story writing style I'm going for. Also, Izuku's love language is most definitely giving gifts and physical touch, and I'm going to write it or die trying. Driving is not as hard as you think. Notes. See the end of the chapter for notes. Izuku, can I do your hair? Toga asks after he loses to Spinner and Shigaraki for the 1,000th time this evening. If you want to, sure. Just so you know, it's pretty hard to handle. He leaves the couch. There's no chance of him winning tonight. Both of them are fired up over something. Izuku isn't sure he wants to know, so he retreats to Toga and Magne. An hour later, his nails are painted black. He's wearing eyeliner, and Toga is braiding his curls. You dye your hair? Toga asks, fingers gentle against his scalp. Yeah, I started getting white streaks in the first year of middle school. Probably from all of the stress I was under. I bet you'd look super cool with white streaks. Why'd you dye it? Izuku shrugs, inspecting his painted nails with appreciation. He'd always wanted to try something like this, but making himself any more of a target wasn't an option. He was already a weak, quirkless freak. Making himself look the part was what got him out of beatings most of the time. Despite what all might thought, he did have muscle before his training started. They were just lean and understated. Bulking up would be an invitation for fights, especially from Kaken. He shudders at the thought of his childhood friend finding out about his 10th month training's community service. Thanks for... The door slams open, revealing Dabi and Mr. Compress. Guess what, fuckers? Indignant screeching from the couch and complete silence from Kurogiri. Neither seems to care at the non-answers. Mr. Compress sighs and shakes his head, but follows Dabi into the bar, closing the door behind them. We found a motorcycle. Izuku perks up, but the other villains look at Dabi like he's stupid. Dabi, none of us even know how to drive a car, Shigaraki says, sounding incredibly annoyed. I can drive. You learn from video games, Spinner. It doesn't count. Magne calls from the bar, sipping a pink-colored drink. Besides, we already have Kurogiri, Shigaraki says, ignoring the misty man's pointed stare. By now, Izuku is practically buzzing with excitement, a huge grin on his face. I can drive. I'm planning on getting my license soon. Can I see it? He wiggles out of Toga's grasp, darting up to Dabi with a big smile. Dabi raises an eyebrow, and Shigaraki cackles. You? Driving? I'd like to see you try, brat. Toga bounces up beside him, giving him a big grin. I want to see too. Mr. Compress sighs, and Spinner stands up and crosses his arms. No way, he's better than me. Underscore, 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 underscore. He's better than me, Spinner admits, watching the green-haired teenager cackle like a maniac as he pulls the front wheel off of the ground and executes a perfect right turn. Go Zuku! Toga cheers, jumping up and down excitedly. I didn't think he'd be like... Shigaraki waves his hand as the motorcycle zooms past them, the rider nothing more than a blur of green. He's not a boring hero pipsqueak after all, Dabi says, nodding in approval. I don't think he ever was. He seems happier here, more relaxed. Magnus speaks up, watching the boy with fondness. She'd liked him since his agreement with her, gender is a social construct speech, and the fondness grew even more when he offered her flamboyant, pink and green feathered coat, stating that it seemed like her style. Plus, his generally cheerful and calm attitude is a welcome break from the League's overall murderous psycho gamer vibes. Yeah, he asked me to take him with me, something about making a bad deal, Shigaraki comments, watching Izuku nearly flip headfirst over the handles to stop himself from hitting the brick wall, the end of the alleyway behind the bar. A bad deal? With who? Mr. Compress asks, curiosity piqued. No idea, Shigaraki shrugs. Notes. The League never recruited Moonfish or Meisler, so you won't be seeing them anytime soon. All of this is taking place during Izuku's summer break. In Japan, 16-year-olds can obtain a license to use a motorcycle, and since Izuku is canonically 15, I decided he can drive and has taken lessons for it. Also, villains are surprisingly easy to befriend if you're a decent human being. You're 5. Food is necessary to your survival. Notes. See the end of the chapter for notes. I made too many cookies, Izuku explains as he holds up a paper bag to the gathered people. So, the smell of chocolate and sugar is enough to lure Toga over, and she snatches the bag out of his hands. Shigaraki peers at the bag in the blonde girl's hands. How do we know it isn't poisoned or shit? He asks, hands ghosting over his bandaged neck. If you want, I'll take a bite out of all of them. No. That's okay. No thanks. Please don't. The pipsqueak wouldn't poison us. He's too heroic for that. Izuku represses a flinch and flops into the beanbag. There's a scuffle before it's determined that Kurogiri should distribute the cookies since he doesn't eat food. Now that's interesting. Where does he get his energy from? And then it calms down, everyone retreating to eat in peace. Dabi's scars are less violently purple than a couple weeks ago, and Toga seems content. He introduced Shigaraki to lotion and chapstick a week ago, and his skin has already started improving. Why'd you make these anyway? Dabi asks, finishing his last cookie in the corner of the bar, right next to the second TV. Oh, my hands are pretty messed up from the sports festival, so I looked up ways to keep them from hurting. Baking was one of the suggestions. Several sets of eyes focus on him. You have chronic pain? Magna asks, eyeing his crooked hands. Izuku nods, holding a hand up and flexing it with a wince. Yeah. Recovery girl did surgery on one after my match with Todoroki. I woke up hours after the festival, and she cleared me to go. She didn't say anything about physical therapy, so I figured I wouldn't bother her anymore. She was pissed enough to let me know not to come back for any more quirk-related injuries. He sighs, shoving his hand into his pocket. The atmosphere darkens as they process his words. Shigaraki's hands move up to his neck, fingers pressing down on the bandages. Dabi is stiff, eyes in slits. Toga's ever-present smile is gone, and she clutches her knife tightly. Magna stops mid-sip of her drink and sets it down on the table a little too hard. Kurogiri and Twice are silent, while Spinner looks uneasy. She denied you medical treatment? Mr. Compress finally asks, his ever-moving hands still for once. I guess. It's fine. I figured out the bone-breaking thing, and minor injuries are easy to deal with. Izuku shrugs, watching the news anchor on the TV report on a minor villain attack near a train station. Spinner's face darkens at the teenager's dismissal, and he takes a half-step forwards. Izuku, you shouldn't deal with your injuries alone. UA may be a prestigious school, but they shouldn't get away with denying medical treatment to a student. The boy in question looks over at the group, finally sensing their shift in mood. He tilts his head, a gesture reminiscent of a small, cute animal. Oh, I guess you're right, he says, and the topic is dropped. For the rest of the night, Spinner has a contemplative look in his eye, and the rest of the group is tenser than usual. Underscore, 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 underscore. Dabi and Toga invited him to go grocery shopping with them. Seeing as Shigaraki had gone into hyper-focus mode to beat a new game, he decided to leave the villain alone. Apparently, Kurogiri is busy somewhere else, so the task of buying food for the league falls on them. Dabi shoved a grocery list into Izuku's hands and started walking through the dark streets with confidence. He's wearing a surgical mask, and his sleeves are rolled down to conceal his burns. Toga has changed out of her school uniform and wears a skirt under a long orange coat. It's probably one of Mr. Compress's. They pass some people, eye them warily. That's fair. The area where the bar is located is kind of shady. But neither of the villains seem to mind the stares, so he ignores them too. 30 minutes later, a blast of air conditioning hits them in the face. The store is a ghost town, most likely because of the time, but the front of the store is occupied by a cashier has heavy bags under her eyes. Toga darts for the candy section, and Dabi drifts toward the toy section, leaving Izuku by the entrance with the list still in hand. Oh well. Sighing, he grabbed a cart and started breezing through the aisles, putting everything from the list into the cart, and then adding the brand of lotion Shigaraki liked. He's been running out. And some of the candy Toga was staring at, and then goes to the specialty aisle to buy some of the snacks he'd heard Spinner mentioning fondly. Once he's done, he double-checks the list and throws in orange juice. God knows Shigaraki needs any kind of vitamin he can ingest, and decides this is good. I'm done, he yells, tapping his scarred fingers on the handle of the basket. As if summoned, both parties appear, and Dabi shoves a wad of cash into his hands. Toga just grins at him, and he smiles back. Sighing, he takes the cash and patiently waits for the cashier to bag everything before handing it to her. She eyes it for a minute before taking it and counting it out and handing back the correct amount. Dabi and Toga grab most of the bags, and Izuku grabs the rest. With that, the shopping trip is over, and they step out of the air-conditioned store. That was quick, Toga said, a cheerful smile on her face as she skipped ahead of them. Dabi grunted in agreement, looking somewhat strained by the bags. He doesn't complain, though, just keeps on going. Halfway home, a man with arms covered in scales stumbles out of an alleyway, gait uneven. When he looks up, there's a triumphant expression on his face. I finally found you, you bastard! Where's my goddamn money? His tone is aggressive, and he looks directly at Dabi, who wears his typical bored expression. On closer inspection, the burned man's arms are shaking slightly, but he clutches the handles of the grocery bags tight to hide it. I have no idea what you're talking about, old man. Wrong thing to say? The man's scales flare with faint light, and his face twists in anger. I know it's you, Dabi. Where the hell is my money? Nope, not dealing with this today. The man's scales are getting brighter and brighter, lighting up the dim street. Crouching down low, he darts forwards and smashes his foot into the man's chin. He drops like a stone, and Izuku lets out a sigh of relief and checks the grocery bags. Oh, good, nothing's broken. Dabi gapes at him, while Toga giggles excitedly, and he gives them a lopsided smile. Did you seriously just jeopardize your spot in the hero course for little old me? The burned man asks, trying to cover his incredulous tone with sarcasm. Huh? No, you can only be charged with assault if you use your quirk on somebody. If he tried to take me to court, it would immediately be dismissed since he was doing that thing with his scales. Izuku gestures at the crumpled man, and looks of understanding on the villains' faces. That's fucked up. It is. All of the laws have been altered around quirks, and it leaves a lot of loopholes and ways to get away with crimes without being convicted. They're quiet after that. After dragging the unconscious man into a nearby alleyway, they head back to the bar. Notes: I'm still upset at Recovery Girl for that threat to not heal him. That's your fucking job. Withholding medical treatment from a struggling teenager isn't. Also, All Might is useless. It took going to Gran Torino to figure out how to not break his bones. In canon, he dismissed Izuku's encounter with the people with glowing eyes as creepy instead of taking him seriously. Quirk usage laws in canon are most definitely discriminatory, and just to make them seem worse, I decided to mess with them a bit. Assault is no longer a charge unless quirk usage happens, although this is blatantly discriminatory towards mutant quirks, since they can't be turned off. And since Izuku didn't have a quirk or friends for a solid decade, he had a lot of time to read up on laws. Chapter 6, Stitches, Don't Fix Everything. Notes. See the end of the chapter for notes. The bar is pretty empty tonight. It's only Shigaraki and Kurogiri. The others are out on a mission, and Twice is taking a mental health day. Good for him, he's been seeming more stressed lately. He'd given up on playing the first-person shooter game and just sprawled on the couch watching Shigaraki die for the 5th time this hour. Kurogiri seems nonplussed by the stream of curse words that leave the scarred man's lips, and Izuku just smiles. Used to it. Oh, he's used to it. He's used to being around Shigaraki and Kurogiri and the others. He's used to their rants about how terrible society is, and nodding at points he agrees on. He's used to offering Toga his blood, and Kurogiri's constant state of disapproval, and Magne's brightly colored drinks, and Twice's personalities, and Dabi's staples, and Mr. Compress's magic tricks, and Spinner's stain worship. It makes him feel light, his thoughts of All Might and One for All banished. They don't call him names he doesn't like or expect impossible things from him. Sighing, he sits up, waiting for Shigaraki to calm down a little more before leaning over and picking up a strategy game from the stack beside the couch. The blue-haired man doesn't complain, just huffs and leans back onto the couch, stretching out like a lanky, underfed cat. The opening music starts, and Izuku picks up the second controller and clicks start. An hour later, Shigaraki is cursing for another reason entirely. How the fuck did you find that? I could have sworn the site was empty. I don't know how you missed it. The graphics were super obvious. All of the statues are facing it, and the bricks are raised in the shape of a door, see? He points at the screen, zooming in a little. Shigaraki leans in, eyes narrowed as he stared at the screen. I still don't see it. A phone goes off, making him jump. After checking his own, he wasn't going to give his mother another heart attack by not responding. He learned his lesson the first time. And determining it isn't his, he looks over to Shigaraki, who's looking at Kurogiri. A portal forms by the door, and Izuku watches with raised eyebrows as Spinner hauls ass through it, nearly stumbling over his own feet. He's covered in a weird powdery substance, and his weapons are crusted with blood, which the student pointedly ignores. Mr. Compress is close behind, fancy mask cracked and his gloves missing. Magan is next, looking distressed. Finally, Dabi sprints through, skidding to a stop right before he hits the bar. In his arms is Toga. She's limp and there's a blade without a handle in her shoulder. There's blood, way too much of it. It must have hit an artery. She could bleed out in minutes without medical treatment. Oh, shit. They all start talking at once, but Izuku ignores them, going to Toga's side and examining her shoulder. Yeah, that blade definitely necked an artery. Face pale, he turns to Kurogiri, who seems the calmest. Whether or not it's because of his quirk is to be determined. Kurogiri, do you have a first aid kit? The misty man flickers, then bends down and grabs a white box from under the bar and hands it to him. Give me the cheapest vodka you have too, he instructs, gesturing for Dabi to follow him. Shigaraki is shooed off of the couch, grumbling about bloodstains. Izuku ignores him, watching Dabi set her down and accepting the bottle of vodka that warps in front of him. Once as she's laying down, he takes off his hoodie and balls it up, pressing it around the wound, trying to stem of the blood while opening up the first aid kit. Searching inside it, he notices, does anyone have any bandages? He looks around, and they all look at a loss as they shake their heads. Even Mr. Compress shakes his head, and Izuku has to force himself to take deep, calming breaths. It's okay. He's worked without bandages before. It's okay. Steeling himself, he checks Toga's wound. The blood flow has slowed, but it's still steady, and he still needs to remove the blade, which will make her lose more blood. So he needs to stem the blood first with some form of fabric and try to limit the circulation. What? He doesn't notice he's mumbling as he starts tearing at his shirt with blood-covered hands, making bandages. Dabi, hold her up. Did it go all the way through? Dabi is there, carefully keeping the girl's bloody back off of the couch. To access the wound better, he tears the fabric of her jacket away from her wound, making sure to keep her chest as covered as possible. No. Thank God, popping the top of the vodka. Is it vodka? Why is it in a wine bottle? With his teeth, he soaks the makeshift bandages in it. Okay, wrap them as tightly as possible and get the hoodie out of the way. Toga's face screws up in pain. Avoid messing with the knife until absolutely necessary. Quickly, he wrapped the area, doing his best to clean up the excess blood so he could see the wound. Thankfully, the bleeding has gone down, but it's left Toga pale. Ignoring the coppery smell, he peers at the wound. It's going to need stitches. Dabi, set her down. Someone disinfect the needle and string in the kit. I'll sew her up once I get the knife out of her shoulder. Mr. Compress steps forwards and takes the kit, while Izuku sticks one of the needles into his arm and allows it to fill up the bag. His head is light, but he continues his movements, forcing his hands to be steady as he dismantles the bag with blood from her gear and sticks the needle into her injured arm, effectively giving her a blood transfusion. He's O negative, and she said something about being a B, so it should work without causing any serious damage. The magician reappears, holding a needle and string in between freshly gloved fingers. Izuku takes it, dunks it into the bottle of alcohol for good measure, then turns back to the blonde. Gotta get the knife out and make sure she doesn't bleed out. Eyes narrowed, he keeps his blood-soaked hoodie close at hand and puts an arm over Toga, angling it so that she can't make any sudden movements. Lightly, he wraps his hand around the blade. She doesn't react. Steeling himself, he pulls the blade out. She jerks violently, crying out in pain. He holds her down with ease, dropping the piece of metal to the floor, then pouring alcohol on his hand and grabbing the needle. Holding Toga steady, he sews the wound shut efficiently and quickly, ignoring the whimpers from his friend as he fixes her. Once it's sewn shut, he presses a clean part of his hoodie down on her shoulder and tears his shirt again, soaking the cloth in alcohol and switching it out with the hoodie. He keeps on pressing it down, and eventually, blood stops spotting the fabric. Hands shaking, he sticks the needle back into his arm and watches it suck up blood again. When it's full, he disinfects it and sticks the needle back into Toga's uninjured arm. Woozy from the loss of blood and stress, he watches the blood drain out of the bag before relaxing, letting out a sigh and removing the needle. With a frown, he watches Toga breathe for a second before judging there isn't anything else he can do. I think she'll be okay. Does she have a bed somewhere quiet? He rises to his feet, swaying slightly. A hand grabs his arm, bracing him. Blinking, he looks up at a cracked geometric mask. Ah, that was nice of him. Toga needs to sleep to regain the blood she lost, and she's sensitive to noise so she won't rest enough unless it's quiet. Mr. Compress nods, and Dabi reappears, taking Toga from the couch and behind the second door. Did he say all of that out loud? Frowning, he stared at his bloody hoodie on the couch. Oh well, at least he has his shirt. Nope, his shirt barely covers his chest. How is he going to go home like this? Mom will ask questions and... Come on! Another set of hands pulls him away from Mr. Compress, and he stumbles along behind them, barely keeping up. His face meets something soft, and he's out like a light. Underscore, 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 underscore. He wakes up to complete darkness. In his pocket, his phone is buzzing. Tiredly, he checks the caller. Mom! Everything comes rushing back to him, and he hits the accept button. Instantly, his mom's voice is in his ear, and she's asking if he's okay, and that he was supposed to be home 2 hours ago. He frowns, upset to have been the one to worry her so much. Mom, I'm okay. My friend. He spots a pair of red eyes watching him, and nearly jumps back in surprise. Shooting Shigaraki a glare, he turns back to his phone. My friend got startled and accidentally knocked us out with their quirk. Sorry to make you worry. I just woke up. He can feel his mom's sigh of relief from the other side of the line. Guilt wells up in his chest and he apologizes again. It's okay, baby. I know you're a teenager now and you need your space. Please just be careful, okay? Yeah. He trails off, remembering Toga's pale face. Actually, do you mind if I stay over? My friend seems pretty stressed out, and I don't want to leave them alone. She hesitates for a minute, and he can practically hear her internal debate. Patiently, he waits, ignoring the surprise in Shigaraki's eyes. I thought you were going to meet up with Yagi tomorrow. And just like that, the weight sinks back onto his shoulders. He'd forgotten about Yagi's visit. Originally, he and All Might would schedule monthly checkups to go over his progress with One for All and talk about ways to get him acknowledged as early on as a new symbol of peace, a lone pillar that never relies on others and works themselves to their grave. Something heavy curls in his gut. Steadying his breathing, he stares at the covers, ignoring his blood-covered hands. Why does he feel like this? He should be grateful. All Might gave him the opportunity to be a hero, gave him a way to compete with those born with quirks. It would be impossible without a quirk. After all, what could someone without a quirk do? It's nice to dream, but you have to be realistic. Yeah, I almost forgot about that. I guess I'll head home. He chuckles, his customary smile sliding onto his face. I'll see you soon. He waits for her to hang up, then drops the phone onto the bed, smile gone. Fuck. He spaces out for a minute, flexing his blood-caked hands absent-mindedly. He needs to go home. He wouldn't be opposed to the idea normally, but between Toga's injury and All Might visiting, that was the most fake smile and laugh I've ever seen. Shigaraki speaks up from his chair in the middle of the room. Izuku looks up, resisting the urge to run his hands through his hair. Red eyes bore into green, and for a moment the student remembers what Shigaraki is. A villain. One that tried to kill him. Then why does he feel so safe here? The answer isn't forthcoming, so he breaks off their staring contest and stands up. Can I borrow a hoodie? Shigaraki points towards a small door to his left. He walks over, opening the door to see a closet with dozens of nearly identical black hoodies neatly hung up. Probably Kurogiri's doing. Slipping off his ruined shirt, he grabs the nearest hoodie and puts it on. The bathroom is 2 doors to the left. The bar is down the stairs, Shigaraki says, and Izuku picks up his phone and slips it in his pocket. After a moment's thought, he grabs a pen and scrap of paper and jots his number down. Tell me when she's awake, please. Underscore, 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 underscore. The next day is hellish as he attempts to make himself look more awake and tries not to think about how much blood Toga lost and is she okay, and he meets with Yagi, telling him about his progress with One for All and complimenting his restraint during the finals bullshit. All Might had 0 restraint during that fight. He was impaled on a metal pole and would have died without Recovery Girl's quirk, and laughs at his awkward jokes. Yagi starts talking about publicity stunts and building off of One, A's fame from the multiple villain attacks, and Izuku zones out, the suffocating feeling back full force. My boy, the nickname sends a thrill through him. Are you all right? You seem a little distracted. Izuku freezes, then focuses on the blonde man, the lie already slipping off his tongue. I'm okay. I'm just worried about a friend. They had a quirk accident last night and seemed pretty upset when I left. Yagi smiles bigger and pats him on the shoulder heavily. Always worrying about others. That's why you'll make a good symbol of peace. He laughed, and Izuku laughed too. He just wants to save people. Underscore, 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 underscore. After 2 sleepless nights, his phone goes off at 3 a.m. It's an unknown number, but he opens it up anyway. It's one image attached to a text. I lived. Image, Toga throwing up a peace sign with Twice, Dabi, and Mr. Compress in the background. The weight lifts off of his shoulders, and he smiles widely, eyes tearing up. Notes. Izuku regularly got the shit beaten out of him and had to deal with it by himself. I'm employing the neglectful Inko card here. She couldn't have missed Izuku being burned, especially when he was younger. Words hurt. All Might is Izuku's lifelong idol and inspiration, and crushed his dreams on a rooftop after being suicide-baited and nearly dying. That was extremely irresponsible. Also, I don't think Izuku wants the title symbol of peace. He wants to help people downtrodden by society, like he was, and give them hope. I think he'll always do better with a support network, and that the title symbol of hope would be more appropriate. Chapter 7. To Meet the Father. Notes. See the end of the chapter for notes. Is he asleep? Shigaraki asks, confusion and curiosity warring on his face. The other league members are scattered across the bar, Spinner and Twice on the other side of the couch, Dabi occupying the beanbag, Toga sprawled on the floor beside Magni. Mr. Compress is on a bar stool across from Kurogiri, who seemed to have stopped his nightly cleaning spree. Izuku is on the couch too, and is leaning against Shigaraki's shoulder, fast asleep. He'd most of the day going over his old notes on hero fighting styles and tentatively practicing 1 or 2 super moves based on kicks instead of punches. It felt right, but the new movements and the overwhelming onslaught of thoughts on changing his training regimen and how to tell All Might about it tired him out. Wow, he's so cute when he sleeps, Toga squeals, eyes bright as she grins at Izuku. Magni hums in agreement as she cleans her magnet. Shigaraki, completely unused to physical contact, much less someone sleeping on him, shifts trying to get his gloved hand out from under the kid. Dabi smirks at Shigaraki's clear discomfort, earning a glare from the blue-haired man. Twice is too occupied by the movie to notice, and Spinner glares at Shigaraki from across the couch, internally mourning at the loss of the natural space heater. Izuku's body temperature is almost on par with Dabi's, and it's a welcome break from the typically cool building. Mr. Compress smiles under his mask, the scene reminding him of his own siblings. It would seem we've become attached. Well, Izuku stabilized the overall emotion of the league and made it much easier for them to get along. The first week was rough, and a lot of fights broke out. But once the child arrived, it seemed to start smoothing out. Shigaraki and Toga were less prone towards bodily harm. Spinner and Dabi stopped arguing over Stain's ideals. Magni and Twice stopped arguing over random things for the hell of it. And Kurogiri, despite his initial reservations, seemed to accept the child after he managed to get groceries and put them away properly without incident. Overall, things had improved. Not that the hero student realizes what he'd done, at least not yet. Underscore, 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 underscore. Izuku's eyes snap open, breathing uneven. The room is dark and quiet, and he can make out dark lumps all around him. He can't quite remember his dream. Just the feeling of being crushed by something. Quietly sighing, he slides off of the couch and slips behind the bar. A moment later, he opens the cap on a bottle of water and takes a couple sips. It helps with his throat, and the cold plastic grounds him in the waking world. As he idly looks around, he notices Kurogiri is nowhere to be seen. He must have gone to bed. Opening his phone, he texts his mom that he's okay and asks to stay over at his friend's house for the night. She replies in a matter of seconds, resignedly agreeing to his request and telling him to be safe. Sighing quietly, he slips the phone back into his pocket and leans over the counter, pressing his forehead to the cool wood. A soft clicking sound comes from his right, and white light bathes him. Izuku turns his face to see the second TV, the one that's never on, a big sound only, displayed on the screen. "Hello, child." The voice is a breath away from death, but holds surety in itself, the kind that comes with having power and knowing how to utilize it. Blinking owlishly, he stares at the screen for a moment before responding. "Ah, you must be Shigaraki's sensei. I've been meaning to thank you." He keeps his voice soft, not wanting to wake up the others. "Oh," the voice asked, filled with amusement. It probably inconvenient to have a hero in training over so much, seeing as you're—" He gestures vaguely with his hand. "So I appreciate it." It's quiet for a moment, the light from the TV bathing the bar in white light. "My student said that you made a bad deal with someone. What kind of deal was it, that you would turn to villains for help?" Straight to the point. Izuku couldn't blame the person. It was strange that a hero would ask a villain that attempted to murder their classmates and teacher for help, much less enjoy their company. Lightly, he tapped the cap of the water bottle, trying to figure out how to phrase his feelings. They'd been weighing heavily on his body for a long time, but vocalizing them, he sighs. "The deal is only one part of the issue. I think it's more the person who I made the deal with. They have a good heart, but I feel like they're projecting on me. They want me to continue the work they were doing, even though the work can be improved. They're blind to the issues their work has caused society as a whole. I don't think they know what kind of person I am, even after spending the last year with me. They barely even know how to teach me. My progress has been through my own trial and error more than their teaching." Izuku pauses, turning over his words in his head. "It's not that I'm ungrateful, I just don't think continuing his work would be right. And I want to tell them, but I don't know how to explain it to them in a way they would understand, because they didn't grow up the way I did. They don't understand the feeling of powerlessness the way I do. As much as I hate to think about it, their work is part of the reason I grew up the way I did." He rubbed a hand over his eyes, the suffocating feeling creeping back up on him. Vocalizing his problems was only the first step, and it wasn't going to magically make everything better. The room is quiet again. He can hear the steady breathing of the other occupants of the room, and a small smile makes its way onto his face. They've never all fallen asleep in the same room, so it's a new experience for him. It also means they trust each other enough not to kill each other in their sleep, which is good. "Is becoming a hero part of the deal?" the person asked, sounding carefully neutral. He doesn't blame them. They probably didn't expect to be info dumped in the middle of the night. "Yeah, I mean, I've always wanted to be a hero, but it wasn't really the title that appealed to me. It was the idea of having the power to reach out and help people," he explains, keeping his voice soft so as not to disturb the others. "I see. Have you always wanted to help people?" "Yes." Izuku responds with no hesitation. Another pause. "If you hadn't made the deal, would you still have pursued a career in heroics? Even though the industry is corrupt to its core?" The voice asks, questions prodding and sharp. The person, whoever they are, doesn't like heroics. That explains Shigaraki's general hatred for the field. And if he's homicidally angry about it, then how angry is this person? "I'm aware of how corrupt the industry is, and that's why I'm joining it. I want to change it from the inside. Use the loopholes and twist them to my advantage so people like Endeavor and Kaken face consequences. Heroes are almost untouchable legally, and that would give me a lot of resources to get important things done quickly and efficiently. No one should be discriminated against because of their quirk. No one should be turned away from hospitals, and people shouldn't be labeled as villains because they can't control their quirk. Heroes are public servants first, celebrities second. They should know how to tell the difference from a criminal and a scared civilian. Laws should apply to them, not bend to them. Most importantly, they should know that not every situation calls for violence. It isn't until the third year that UA offers a course on how to de-escalate dangerous situations, and it's optional. Other hero schools don't even bother offering the class." He stops when he hears someone shift, frowning and softening his voice. The root of most of society's issues is how willfully ignorant we are. All they see when they look at a villain is a criminal, not a person reaching their breaking point because of others. They choose to see the world in black and white rather than the many shades of gray it actually is. I want people to realize the consequences of over-reliance on heroes and constantly shoving others into pretty little packages so they don't have to think too hard. Izuku finishes, taking a breath and composing himself. Quirkless freak. So to answer your question, I would have tried to be a hero with or without the deal. It might not have worked, but I refuse to leave a broken system in place for convenience. I won't forget. A long silence. Then a deep chuckle comes from the TV, making him jump. Quickly, he reaches over and turns down the volume, checking the dark lumps. None of them have moved, thankfully. Letting out a quiet sigh of relief, he takes another sip of his water. You're more aware than most hero hopefuls. So refreshing to hear someone from the other side admit the system has flaws and show a passion to solve them. I was worried you'd be another child blinded by hero worship. Izuku takes a deep breath, unclenching his fists and setting the water bottle onto the bar. Being blind was never an option for me. Be realistic. He may not be the first quirkless hero, but he'll make sure anyone with that dream has the option to come forwards. And that will start when he fixes the system. This has been enlightening. I must say, I'm looking forward to those changes you want to make. Let's talk again soon, Izuku. With that, the TV shuts off, and Izuku is left in the dark. Shigaraki-sensei isn't as bad as I thought he would be. Of course he could be hiding his true nature, but the far too familiar. Bitterness at the hero system was something that couldn't be faked. Sighing, Izuku finishes his water and slips back to the couch. 3 forms are stretched out on it, leaving no room for him. Thankfully, there's space beside Dabi on the beanbag, so he slides on, ignoring the burned man's quiet grumble of annoyance. Eventually, an arm flops over him, and he bathes in the warmth. Underscore, 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 underscore. The next morning, he wakes up to arguing. The fuck? He was with me first. I didn't steal him, you crusty fucker. I don't even remember him getting here. The person under him rumbles, voice raspy from sleep. That's bullshit. It's too early in the morning for me to witness a murder. Kill him twice joins in, and Izuku smiles. How come Izuku didn't cuddle with me? Toga whines. It's okay, dear. There's always next time. Magni consoles Toga. Just admit to stealing him, you walking corpse. Shigaraki screeches, making him wince against his human heater. It's probably Dabi, but he's not really in the mood to get up and apologize for using him as a pillow just yet. And it's pretty surprising none of them woke up when he talked to Shigaraki-sensei, though. Most of them are light sleepers, so the sound of conversation should have been enough for them to rise. The boy decides not to dwell on it and curls closer to the skinny body under him, breathing in the scent of ash and burn cream. A hand rests on his head and ruffles his hair. Izuku sighs, moving his head so they have better access. Several quiet ahs make him blink again. Confused, he looks up and sees Dabi watching him with an unreadable expression. Turning around, he notices they're all still in the couch area and watching them with expressions resembling a person when they see a cute puppy. Instantly, his face heats up, and he jumps off of Dabi and dives behind the beanbag to preserve his dignity. The laughter that follows makes it hard to keep the frown on his face, so he settles for a pout, looking over to Mr. Compress. He just shakes his head, mask making his expression impossible to determine. He ignores the laughter and teasing, choosing to follow the smell of breakfast instead. Shigaraki and Toga are close behind, both looking less annoyed by the prospect of food. His conversation from last night is pushed to the back of his mind at the sight of Kurogiri making scrambled eggs. Notes. I've decided to make All For One less of a dick here because I want the league to be a safe place for Izuku. All For One knows he's the 9th and decides to poke around and see if Izuku knows about his existence. No, he doesn't. And see if he's going to have to deal with another self-righteous prick holding his brother's quirk. Also, Shigaraki loves cuddles and hates Dabi. Chapter 8. Back in school, back in your place. Notes. See the end of the chapter for notes. It's his first day back at school, and the suffocating feeling is back. Still, he plows through, plastering a smile on his face. It's raining outside, and his hand is in more pain than usual, but he keeps smiling. Kaken is yelling at him, but he keeps smiling. Thankfully, Aizawa tells everyone to shut up. Good, he needs something to focus on, besides the pins and needles in his hand. The morning progresses normally, with Izuku's note-taking slowed down by half. No one notices, and he retreats to Todoroki's side come lunch. The stoic boy doesn't seem to mind much, and doesn't comment on his lack of chatter either. Izuku is grateful for that. After eating, he takes the spare bandages out of his backpack and wraps up his hand tightly. From what he read online, it helps with arthritis pain and swelling. Ida and Uraraka are too busy talking about budgeting to notice, but Todoroki shoots him a concerned look. He responds by smiling. Silently, he hopes the rain will stop soon. Training exercises are suspended until later notice, and All Might and Aizawa co-teach a lesson on heroic laws and property damage. It's nothing he doesn't know, so he gets distracted, doodling an outstretched hand in his notebook. Right as he's adding fingernails, he feels somebody's eyes on him. He looks up and meets Aizawa's dark eyes. It takes everything he has not to flinch and apologize mid-lesson. Quickly, he starts taking notes, guiltily avoiding the hero's gaze. Focus, avoid attracting attention. Nothing good happens when teachers pay attention to him. Underscore, 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 underscore. It's another week before he makes it back to the bar, and he's swamped in work, so he ends up bringing it along with him. It hasn't stopped raining yet either, so he hasn't really had the chance to exercise or focus on anything besides work and managing the pain in his hand. The sound of Shigaraki and Spinner cursing each other out is familiar and easily ignored, and Toga just sort of hovers over his shoulder until he pulls out his math homework. Then she hisses and retreats, somewhere. Mr. Compress, Twice, and Magni are nowhere to be seen, and Dabi is sprawled on the beanbag, watching the screen with amusement. Kurogiri is cleaning a glass and occasionally looks over to him. Unfortunately, the bandages on his hands only do so much, and he has to take frequent breaks to massage the stiffness out of his limbs. Sighing, he goes back to his completed sheet and starts erasing the right answers and writing in the wrong answers, making sure to make minor mistakes. Once he's done, he opens up his secondary notebook and phone. Distantly, he hears a click. Ah, you're back. I was wondering why Shigaraki was calmer than usual. It's nice to be back, sir. He responds automatically, hand moving quickly to write down observations, one of Ingenium's old fights. He doesn't notice the sudden silence or the amusement that radiates from the TV. You seem busy. I'm fixing my fighting style, he responds, absent-mindedly rubbing his aching hand. That's warranted, considering the condition of your hands. Any more damage and they would probably lose basic functions. Izuku blinks, looking over at the TV. How do you know? The room is silent for a long moment, and Kurogiri flickers more than usual. Shigaraki looks awed by the person behind the TV, and Spinner and Dabi look equal parts uneasy and curious. It's one of my quirks. A pause. Then, you have more than one quirk? That's so cool. How many do you have? Does your original quirk act like a copy quirk? Is there a way for you to categorize quirks once you have them? If you have a mutant quirk, does it force biological changes onto your body? That sounds painful. Oh, do you have a longevity quirk? Have you ever done a brain scan? Is your quirk a mutation? Would you gain natural resistance to fire if you had a fire quirk? Does your brain categorize quirks by type? How long can you keep a quirk? Is there a time limit? Does it have an activation requirement? What about... He screeches to a halt verbally, slapping a hand over his mouth. Damn it, you stupid Deku! Didn't you learn your lesson the last time you asked about someone's quirk? He internally curses himself, completely missing the bewildered expressions of the other people in the room. Sorry, I must have made you uncomfortable. Izuku takes his hand off of his mouth, turning back to his notes and phone to hide his embarrassment at his slip-up. But he couldn't help it. Someone having more than one quirk is unprecedented. So are transferable quirks, and look where you are. Not at all. I hope you understand my reluctance to disclose any details about my quirk, seeing as we are on opposing sides, though. The green-haired boy blinks, tilting his head to watch the static TV with a thoughtful look in his eyes. Of course. I was just curious. I've always liked quirks, he responds carefully, trying to gauge the person's reaction. Izuku doesn't want to jeopardize his place here with unwanted questions, but he's itching to talk quirks. Now he's found someone who has a lot of experience with them. Oh, really? An hour later, Izuku and the person behind the TV, he never got a name, and he has the feeling he doesn't want one, are discussing whether or not the category of mutation in quirk types should exist. The bar's occupants look like their brains are melting, and twice had come in, listened to approximately 30 seconds of the conversation, and walk back out. Overall, it makes for an interesting evening, and he goes home with some new ideas. Notes. Asterisk laughs at Shigaraki's confusion asterisk. Writing confused Shigaraki in quirk discussions in between All for One and Izuku gives me life, especially since I get to talk about some of my theories about quirks that I have nowhere else to post about. I'm completely skipping the training camp arc because that shit was glorified torture and I refuse to traumatize Izuku more. This will be a fic where he gets the comfort he deserves. Chapter 9. A Quirkless Boy with a Quirk. Notes, TW, Disassociation. Please don't read if you're sensitive to this topic. If you want to skip, stop reading at Why haven't the teachers here learned their lesson about pairing them together? And start reading again at Izuku jumps when Uraraka places a hand on his arm. See the end of the chapter for more notes. Midoriya, why has your quirk been active the entire morning? Aizawa's tired voice comes from the depths of his yellow sleeping bag. Izuku blinks, fighting the urge to shrink away from his teacher. I thought if I kept it active a couple hours of the day at a low percentage, it might help with control and assimilating my body to a higher power output. His squeaks a little at the end of his sentence and he cringes back. Thankfully, the rest of the class is at lunch. Otherwise, this would have been even more mortifying. After a very loud silence, Aizawa sighs and dismisses him. Underscore, 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 underscore. Today we'll be redoing the training exercise from the beginning of last semester. All Might cheers, a big smile on his face. The rest of the class starts murmuring among themselves, but Izuku keeps quiet, praying that he won't get paired with Katsuki again. The pairings will be the same as last time, but the roles will be reversed. The heroes will play the villains, and vice versa, he explains, and Izuku's heart sinks. He's fighting Katsuki. Again. Why? He nearly died last time. Why haven't the teachers here learned their lesson about pairing them together? His vision starts blurring at the edges, and words filter through his ears, becoming unidentifiable sounds. His limbs are heavy, and he feels rooted in place. Izuku jumps when Uraraka places a hand on his arm. She looks worried for some reason. Slowly, the world comes back to him, and he moves his arm upwards to pat her hand reassuringly. Sorry, I zoned out for a minute there. All Might said we're going to be the villains this time, right? Do you have any ideas for a strategy? With that, her signature determined but bubbly smile is back, though there's still a trace of worry in her eyes. I was thinking, underscore, 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 underscore. It would be a terrible plan if Katsuki didn't hate Izuku as much as he did. If Izuku didn't know the other boy so well. But this was an exercise that he might as well have lost last time. He'd learned his lesson since then. So he waits on the porch of the building, admiring his altered hero outfit. He hadn't really asked for the sudden color change, but it looked nice and he didn't mind the black. It went better with the red boots anyway. Though he could have done without the weird hood mask thing seriously, who designed this and got it approved without his knowledge? It was useful for hiding just how nervous he is. Bakugo, we cannot just... Deku! A scream comes from a block away, making Izuku flinch. Quietly, he listens to All Might declare the match is starting. keeping an eye on his surroundings. And there he is, a blonde and a blue-haired boy rocket towards the entrance with little to no care of who sees them, just like he planned. Uravity, I've spotted our targets. Are you in place? Yes. Good luck, Deku. He winces at the name, wishing his pettiness hadn't gotten the better of him all those months ago, but quickly turns his attention to the hero pair, who are now arguing right outside the gate. Be a trap. We must think logically. The hell? Deku isn't strong enough to be a trap. He probably just wanted to sit his lazy ass down and scare us without actually doing anything. Bakugo screams loudly enough that he can hear. Forcing his body to relax, he leaned a chin against his hand, watching the pair with feigned amusement. They seemed to notice the sudden change in atmosphere and simultaneously turn to face him. He lets a smile slide onto his face, even though they can't see it. Ah, the two little heroes have come to prove their worth? That's too bad. I don't think you're up for the task. You have a long way to go before you're worthy enough to lick the ground beneath my boots, much less face me in battle. He laughs in the face of Katsuki's rage, pretending he's somewhere else, somewhere safe. Die! Bakugo, wait! Katsuki blasts himself forwards, hand outstretched for Izuku's face. Everything blurs as he ducks under the punch and kicks Katsuki solidly on the jaw, just like with the man from before, and knocks him out. Before Iida can react, he uses 3% and lands a kick on the side of his armor that makes the metal crumple like paper. Taking advantage of his classmate's shock, he grabs the other boy's hair and smashes his face into his knee, making Iida drop to the floor. After determining they're knocked out, he snatches the capture tape from Katsuki's outfit and carries them both over the fence. Quickly, he tangles the capture tape and the boys together, so hopelessly that it will take scissors to cut them out. Smiling, he walks away from the pair and back into the building, locking the door behind himself. Lightly tapping his comm, he reports to his teammate. Both heroes are unconscious and incapacitated. How are you doing on your end? Good. The bomb is in place, and I should be able to hold it for the remainder of our time, just in case one of them manages to escape. Thank you, Uravity. It's always a pleasure working with you. You sound so formal. She giggles and he smiles softly. The pity in her eyes when he mentioned the quirkless stung the most. She was his first friend. Would they be friends if he didn't have a quirk, or would she pity him too? I'm just getting into character, he replies, absently rubbing his hands through his gloves. He'd based it off of a certain person, actually, not that anyone would be able to tell. I won't forget. Neither boy wakes up for the remainder of the exercise, and Uraraka and Izuku are declared the winners. When asked why he knocked out the heroes, he shrugged and said it seemed like something a villain would do. Everyone is quieter after that, mulling over his words. All Might seems more subdued than normal, and his tan skin took on a lighter hue every time he looked at Izuku. Notes. All Might, you're looking a little pale there, buddy. You good? Laughs in traumatizing. All Might asterisk. He was reminded a little too much of his nemesis there. Also, people don't have to be outright hateful to be discriminatory. Uraraka and Iida are good people, but microaggressions and pre-existing bias are a thing. Even if Uraraka is poor, she has had a powerful quirk her entire life and hasn't met any quirkless people, so she is probably biased. Iida is part of a rich hero family and has a powerful quirk, so he's very far removed from the reality of quirkless people's. Chapter 10. Write that down. Please don't. Notes. See the end of the chapter for notes. Tonight, Dabi deigned to join them for Mario Kart and is the most petty asshole Izuku has ever played against. He doesn't even want to win, just causes extreme inconvenience to a different person each round. For the past 3 rounds, Dabi has kept right in front of him and constantly uses banana peels on his car. The bastard knows he isn't good at the game, and he still chooses to mess with him. The nerve. So Izuku does what he does best. Talk. As soon as the next round starts, he opens his mouth. Did you know it takes 200 milligrams of nitroglycerin to stop someone's heart? If I were to freeze that amount of Kaken's sweat into ice cubes, I could mix it with, say, sweet rum and offer it to Endeavor. He'd have to drink the alcohol slower to avoid causing a fire hazard. His competitors are falling behind, just as he planned. And the taste of nitroglycerin would be mellowed out by the alcohol. Of course, I'd have to drink the rum to avoid suspicion, so I drink it faster and let the ice cubes melt halfway so my heart wouldn't stop. Plus, nitroglycerin wouldn't leave any traces in an autopsy, so doctors would assume it was a heart attack. He's miles ahead of the competition now and easily wins first place. With a satisfied smirk, he looks over at the villains, who stare at him with blank expressions. Dobby, in particular, looks like he's just seen God as he stares at the green-haired boy. Did you just plan an assassination while playing Mario Kart? Spinner asks with wide eyes, looking from Izuku to the screen and back again. Holy shit! Let's do it twice, cheers! And Magne just takes another sip of her drink, then grimaces. I've never liked Endeavor, Mr. Compress muses, messing with one of his ever-present marbles. Could you repeat that? Dobby asks, and where did you get that notebook? Izuku shrieks, jumping backwards and landing on Shigaraki's lap. The blue-haired man screeches indignantly and tries to push him off, with no success. Geez, brat, what are you, made of bricks? Yup, Izuku says, grinning at the scarred man's frustration. Dobby is still waiting, pen poised over a little black notebook that came out of nowhere. Sighing, he turns to the burned man and very slowly starts again. Oh, hypothetically, if I were to kill Endeavor, I would freeze 200 milligrams of nitroglycerin into ice cubes and mix it with sweet rum. And since Endeavor has a fire quirk, hypothetically, he would have to drink it slower, and the nitroglycerin would stop his heart and make it look, hypothetically, like a heart attack. Izuku instructs slowly, ignoring Shigaraki's bewildered expression. Are you seriously giving us the perfect way to kill Endeavor? Shigaraki manages to get out, sounding so confused that the green-haired boy takes pity on him. If I did, it would be because he's scum that deserves to be curb-stomped off of the face of the earth, Izuku responds airily, and notes. Underten Q Izuku starting to become more self-aware, and a murder scheme that I stole from another book. Link below, you should check it out. Lots of Endeavor bashing, and Endeavor faces consequences. https://archive of or/own.org/work/178058999/chapters/4201037. Thank you for watching this video.